The hunt is quite a fragmented plant community. There's a lot of resilience, and we'll see when we're driving along roads and in pasture and in highly modified areas, there's an amazing amount of resilience of the native vegetation. But equally, the more complex plant communities are quite fragmented. In the modern context, plant communities are not able to connect in that pollination and genetic sense. I think at the heart of restoration, or at least the way we approach it, is seed. We're using local native seed to restore degraded land and try and turn it back to the original bushland. What we're looking to do is to collect from as broad a diversity of plant communities and species and forms of species. There's quite a conversation around genetics and provenance. Plant communities can be unique, and the argument for that is to keep the integrity of a plant community by collecting the local seed and putting the local seed back. We can have confidence that there's inherent diversity within small populations of plants. On the other hand, it's a cautious approach to collect from a wide variety of niches, habitats, locations within the landscape to maximise that diversity. We've been working with local trainees and trying to pass on some of the things we've learnt.
I grew up next to the bush, and it's like I always loved being there, but I never fully understood it, I guess. And so now learning, I'd just be walking around like, oh yeah, there's a tree. But now going like, oh, okay, what kind of tree? Why is that growing in this location?
I'm Alison. I'm a trainee with the HEART team, which stands for Hunter Aboriginal Riverkeeper team. I sort of grew up with always being involved with the bush, and I guess the cultural aspect too comes into it. You know, we look after the land looks after us, that kind of thing. So that sort of factors into what we do as well.
I'm Tim, founder of Cumberland Plains Seeds. We're inside one of our seed sheds. I guess you could say this is the heart of our operations in some ways. After all our hard work in the paddock and out in the field, collecting seed, assessing sites, at the end of the day, a lot of what we use to achieve the outcomes we're looking for is with seed. We've categorised some of these seed collections into that stratum: grasses, herbs, wildflowers, shrubs and trees. This is Acacia decora, one of the local wattles. Hard-seeded species, early coloniser, fast-growing, ideal in restoration sites. It'll compete with weeds, set the conditions for later plants to come through. There's a beautiful relationship between seed and ants. The seed provides the ants with a protein sack that's a great food source. The seed in return gets taken to a nest and gets distributed to a new environment. This is a bag of a blended native grass product. We've managed ex-grazing land, derived grasslands for seed production. As a result, we're getting 15, 20, maybe even more grass species growing in a complex and diverse plant community.
Grassy woodlands are the dominant type of vegetation in the Hunter Valley, so grasses are a very important component of that. But there are plenty of other non-grass herbs, little daisies that get into our seed mix, and bluebells and so forth. The focus is the grass, but another component which is very important and adds to our seed mix is the herbs that are on the ground as well.
This is the beautiful little native bluebell, or Weylenbergia. It's a relatively short-lived species, quick growing, takes advantage of a gap, part of the amazing diversity in the understories. And this is what we're trying to recreate. We're trying to develop a seed resource that can be used on landforms that have been disturbed by activity such as mining, and we're wanting to use local species and get as much diversity represented in these remnant grasslands here back on those disturbed lands. They were building a golf course here 3 years ago. We used our direct seeding method and reintroduced a native seed bank. We've re-established over 30 local native species. Understory, trees, shrubs, herbs, salt bushes. There's an ecosystem going on here. Different species are adapted to different conditions, and the greater the diversity, the greater the resilience often of these landscapes. You can at times find gaps in the grass canopy, and the process of recovery in this gap is often initiated by non-grass species. This is a little glycine, putting a bit of nitrogen into the soil, creating a bit of cover across the ground, and in time the grasses are likely to also colonise, which in this case you can see fresh recruits, some new growth, some accumulation of organics. The earth is starting to crack, so the infiltration's starting to improve with water. This little natural disturbance created by a critter digging and foraging is the sort of environment we're trying to recreate on the rehabilitation when we're trying to re-establish a grassland. We provide an indentation, a disturbance, and that takes moisture and seed and resources into that low point, and it's a beautiful environment for germination and establishment. Where we've disturbed ground in the past and exposed subsoils and the gravel, there's not enough fertility, there's not enough soil structure, there's not enough water holding capacity to support plants. This gravel area here is supporting lichens, and perhaps that's the first step towards capturing resources and capturing seed, and perhaps there's a succession from lichen to plants. It's interesting to look at what could be happening. So if this was gravel, clearly now it's not. There's organics and leaf accumulating. There's quite a diversity of plants. There's this little fern, a little chilanthes, a little legume, bossia, which would be fixing a bit of nitrogen and putting runners across the ground. There are weeds in here, so little flapweed and fireweed, and potentially from a function point of view, they're actually performing a role, putting down taproot, and it looks like this environment's the better for this flapweed. The grasses are pretty robust in the presence of the weed. From this raft of plants and organics and moisture capture and germination, it's starting to have an effect up slope, and this is actually potentially regenerating. The thing with restoration ecology, one of the core concepts is this idea of resilience, and I guess it's inherently understanding the strength of nature and the propensity to repair and self-repair and evolve and regenerate. Given that there's a remnant woodland right next door, the state of that woodland might be a reasonable representation of what you might be trying to achieve here. We're on a local road in the Hunter Valley. Amongst the coffee cups and the neglect or lack of interest going on in a very skinny little strip, we've basically got a weed-free native grassland, quite a complex little assemblage. It's amazing the resilience and the diversity and the value in these tiny areas. You don't want to lose the idea that all areas have potential resilience, all areas have value, and it's surprising how quick and well they can recover on their own merit. And it's also interesting that even if they don't recover to what they were and they're now in a new state, it might not have the complexity or the diversity or the habitat structure that the wild area does, but it does have something different. And so, this is a case in point. This dam is a disturbance. It's a human-induced thing, but the way that this habitat has responded to that disturbance is amazing. Yeah.